All right. I don't want food. I think we're live. It said some. Yeah, we're live, but I guess it's not working somewhere. But yeah. Anyway, hello everyone. Welcome to another episode. We haven't done this in a while, mostly because I guess we've been busy.
Yeah, we've been pretty busy.
Yeah, but thing is, we get to enjoy a Sunday night. Well, we get to do our We have our two favorite subjects: Pizza Hut and dunking on tankies.
The two essential life-sustaining fuels.
Yeah. Anyway, now when I first saw this video, I actually didn't think it would be a tanky complaining about it. I was actually thinking, okay, well, this could actually just be like, okay, maybe it was just criticizing like the Pizza Hut commercial for being weird, because admittedly it was kind of weird.
Yeah, it's true.
But no, it's a lot worse than that. And the guy, before we just to clear up his political remark, this is a channel called Hakim, Hakim.
Comrade Hakim.
Hakim, yeah. With over 100,000 subscribers. There's a reason to. There's the atheist argument right there. God is dead and we killed him.
Oh, God. I gotta say, Nietzsche's death is the only thing keeping me going now that I know that Comrade Hakim has 100,000 followers.
Yes. Doesn't Vosh only have like 40,000 followers on Twitch or something?
It's fucking weird, man.
We'll discuss that.
Oh, well, I guess the video is starting without us.
Stupid Pizza Hut commercial Gorbachev made. This is more of a shitpost, honestly, but I've been meaning to get to this, so here I am. This will probably be a lot more vulgar than what you normally expect of me, but I have a...
Oh, that means he's going to be extra good then.
Yeah, extra cope.
Yes.
Let's say severe distaste of Gorbachev, and that comes across quite easily. If you're wondering what my personal opinions of Gorbachev are, look at the beginning monologue on hate in the short story I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. If you're out of the loop somehow on who this vile human being is, Gorbachev was the last leader of the Soviet Union, the one personally responsible for the fuck-up after fuck-up during the policies post-1980.
Okay, well, let's start with already that the Soviet Union before Gorbachev was already on the way out.
Yeah, no, and like this guy's completely ignoring, as always, his own Marxist theory, which is dialectic and historical materialism, which states that vast interpersonal forces must drive history. Yet here he is blaming the collapse of the Soviet Union on a single man.
Like stagnation, like when... If you just look up, like, actually, I'm going to look this up, just Soviet GDP per capita by year, because this could be...
There was that, there was Afghanistan, and there was just widespread disillusionment at every level of society.
Oh, wait. You gotta find the... Because the data is interesting. That's why I want to bring it up. I just wish I had it saved.
Must keep these things handy.
All right. Just got to... type in more... Go to like... Okay, so let me just share screen over there for a minute. But yeah, as you can see, this is the GDP per capita of the Soviet Union from 1951 to 2018.
And you notice how it begins to flatten out in the 70s and 80s before taking a big drop after the collapse because, it was all artificially propped up.
Yeah. It seems like this is where we can definitely say stagnation began, or when the first fall happened. This is during Brezhnev's era.
Yeah, and also keep in mind, this might not even be an accurate representation of living standards because a lot of this GDP was invested in heavy industry and producer goods as opposed to consumer ones. So it probably was worse than this indicates.
And also, if we look at the graph here, we can see that it got back to like pre-fall levels by about 2003, which definitely took a while, but nowadays, that's pretty high numbers.
Yeah, surprising, and rate of growth too.
Like, especially like when you get to like the early 2000s, there was like a huge like speed of growth. But
yeah, amazing what happens when you had actual growth based on actual economic power as opposed to number padding.
Here's one more funny situation. 1981, GDP per capita.
Syria, of all countries.
Yeah, I just thought that interesting data to show.
Is especially considering the current state of Syria, which ironically Russia is largely responsible for.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why we're responsible is because we didn't do anything.
The exactly.
Opportunity existed for like 3 years, and Obama was just like, blow over.
Nope, don't feel like it. Sorry.
Hey, can't lose the 2012 election.
It's against the guy who's laughed at about the 80s called they want their foreign policy back. Apparently, the 80s were then.
And the one who illegally dissolved the USSR against the democratic will of the Soviet people.
Okay, pause for a sec. Is he thinking about the referendum of March 91? Because that was Gorbachev's idea to create a renewed democratic Soviet Union. That whole referendum, that was his initiative. And the reason why it failed was not because he dissolved the country, but because there was a coup attempt against him by hardliners that effectively broke his power as leader. And all the republics just declared independence, and he was powerless to stop them.
Especially since even by the time the referendum happened, some of the Soviet republics were already declaring independence.
Yes, 6 out of the 15 republics refused to take part at all, and they had their own referendums in which a majority voted for independence.
I remember, I think it was the Baltic states, Moldova,
Georgia, and Armenia.
Yeah.
But anyway, the point was, Gorbachev did not dissolve the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
He just kind of accepted the reality on the ground when he gave his resignation speech.
If anything, the hardliners made it worse because...
Yeah, they were the ones who had destabilized the whole process. Without their coup attempt, the new constitution that had been voted on under Gorbachev's initiative would have become law. Maybe, who knows? It might still have dissolved because it was pretty unstable by that point anyway.
It might have dissolved, but probably would have maybe lasted a year, maybe
yeah, a year or two.
92,
Yeah, no, it would depend if they could implement actually effective economic reforms.
Yeah.
Plunging tens, if not hundreds of millions into severe, abject, humiliating poverty that the vast majority have yet to recover from.
I think we just went over that part.
Yeah, we went over that. Their GDP per capita is now higher than, and granted, some parts of the Soviet Union are in pretty terrible shape.
Depending, but
the Central Asian countries. But that's also more of the fault of the Soviet Union for messing up their borders.
Exactly. Yeah, that was the case before 1991 too. And also, the borders they drew were not viable. The borders Stalin ultimately drew, and that's a big part of the trouble.
The borders were actually intentionally made to like
the borders of colonial African states, if you will.
Also, is there a way to there's no way to like have both of them up because I feel like I'm going back and forth between these two tabs. But if you look at like, let's just take a nation like Uzbekistan, former USSR country, at the height, which is the only data they have, 8,000 in 73. This is before stagnation really took effect. So this is probably the highest GDP per capita in the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
If you look at it, so Uzbekistan, there was a big drop after the fall of the Soviet Union, followed by stagnation. But if you look at it now, it's rising.
It's pretty well improved, I gotta say. And because again, it's actual economic growth and not just churning out endless numbers of goods in order to number pad.
It was probably like a juggernaut one here, but let's see, Estonia. If you look at those numbers, that's $27,000 per citizen.
No, Estonia is one of the best performing examples overall.
Yeah. Let's see, and they reached 89 levels in about 2003. They mostly recovered by 2003.
Yeah, and a large part of that is just supply chains getting disrupted when a once united country suddenly breaks into 15. That just would happen under any circumstance, and it's just a matter of how well they adapt to it.
Actually, I'm surprised they recovered as quickly as they did because that's mostly a 12-year period.
Yeah, most of which was growing.
Yeah, it's like it is actually interesting because the 90s definitely were terrible. It was a terrible place to be compared to the 80s Soviet Union in a lot of ways in most countries because you were poorer. But
yeah, but you were growing most of that time.
Yeah, and of course, by like 2003, virtually most places had recovered financially. It's like,
it's again, it's the side effect of 40 years of failed policies coming home to roost. Because you have no utilities that are worth anything in a free market. It's going to be painful to build up ones that are. But many of them have fared quite well, even under these circumstances.
Like, I'm trying to think how long it took West Germany to recover from World War II economically.
1960-ish, I think. Sometime in the 1960s, last time I heard.
That was 15 years. So, to be, I honestly rate their performance pretty well.
Yeah, that's a success if there ever was one.
30 years later. Somehow, as some sick joke, he's still alive. We have a saying in Arabic.
Based.
Based. The only Soviet leader that's still alive.
Yes, posting his W's. And fun fact, all the coup plotters that tried to overthrow him are now dead. And their reasons for trying to do so were officially ill health. And he's outlived all of them. So posting a massive W there.
No, that reminds me of like the Chenenko joke that spread when he died. He's just as effective as in death as he was in life.
Or when Margaret Thatcher at Andropov's funeral, when asked, "How was it?" "Oh, it was quite splendid. I'm looking forward to the next one next year."
Yeah, like honestly though, Chenenko. Seriously. If
Yeah.
was Soviet leader, I could feel bad for it with him because they should have just let that poor man retire.
Yeah.
Just let him retire.
Oh man, he was emblematic of everything wrong with the country at that time. This decrepit, senile, barely functioning old man.
Yeah.
Kind of like the devil doesn't destroy his own nest, and Gorbachev is the reinforced steel skeleton of that nest, if anything. Let's take a look at this soulless husk of a man selling out his great country for what Americans tell me is pretty shit pizza, apparently.
Depends on. Thing is, I think it is kind of crappy pizza, but if you leave that shit in the fridge, it will stay as good Unlike every other pizza, you leave that shit in the fridge, it won't go bad for days.
Yeah, and the thing is, for Soviet people who were used to standing in line for hours for all sorts of food, having any food that's put before you almost immediately was a miracle. That just like absolutely blew so many people away, even if it was ultimately of a not so good quality.
Yeah. I'm just
What are you looking for?
I'm just getting the link to this video so I can tweet it out because I forgot to do that.
Fair enough.
But yeah. Also, we might get into this later, but there's a certain quote from the Chinese premier at the time of the Soviet collapse. What's his first name? Xi Jinping? No.
Deng Xiaoping.
Yeah. Where he actually said that the reason why the Soviet Union fell was because reforms didn't go far enough.
Yeah, exactly. No, and that was a big reason because this, unlike the Chinese reform, which is a very complicated process implemented from the bottom up in many ways, starting in these self-contained zones, perestroika mostly took the form of decrees, one which the entrenched bureaucracy fought against and sabotaged at every turn, which of course only made the economy worse.
And also, I think they actually, I know they actually started making free market reforms under Mao to a lesser extent, but then Ding really took it further.
Yeah, like towards the
Mao,
end, in the countryside, the whole collective system had effectively ceased to exist, just in terms of facts on the ground.
The thing is, Mao could have easily got past the bureaucratic nonsense because who would oppose him? If he did oppose him.
Exactly. Now that we think about that, if somebody like Stalin might have been able to successfully pull it off. The irony.
It'd be like in Iran, how like the last Shah was unable to contain the clergy, and that's why he fell. And the reason the former Shah didn't fall is because he realized that the clergy aren't going anywhere, so you shoot them first.
Perfect solutions.
Yeah.
Shall we? Look at this smug piece of shit. What the fuck are you so happy about? The incoming AIDS epidemic?
Wait, Gorbachev is responsible for something that happened under Yeltsin's leadership?
Yeah, and
What? Because like nothing of the sort happened when he was actually in charge.
Yeah. Also, if you go to like places in Africa, they're poor, but there'll be people who are happy there.
Yeah.
It's like what? Does this guy just go up to anyone and like, if you're smiling in like Kenya, is this guy going to come up and be like, "Why are you happy?"
Yeah, these people are literally joyless.
Yeah.
You see this kid? Apparently, that's his granddaughter, who spends her time as a socialite attending lavish parties, appearing in clothing and makeup commercials, and traveling to and from Europe for, I shit you not, more variety in fashion.
Okay, I'm going to be honest. I thought that was his wife. And I don't know why.
Just the angle. In other scenes, it becomes pretty obvious that she's a kid.
Direct quote. End me.
I'd be delighted. Oh, I messed up. I meant to just pause to make the joke, and then I ruined the video. But he said just end me, and I'll reply, I'd be delighted.
Absolutely. In Minecraft.
Yes. Oh yeah, that's okay.
You'll quickly see this old dude knows what's up. Economic confusion is beyond an understatement.
Yeah, because that never existed before.
No, and as we've pointed out,
Syria.
Yeah. And as we pointed out, when it did happen under Gorbachev's leadership, it was mostly because bureaucrats were subverting him from beneath. And again, it's not fair to blame him for something that happened under Yeltsin's leadership and Yeltsin's policies.
Yeah. And also, Yeltsin was, thing is, he was just not the right person to lead Russia.
Just not a competent leader, you know.
Like what he did in like the 91 coup, that was like the highlight of his
political career. He was a better revolutionary than than governor, and that's quite common. Some people are just better at riling people up than actually implementing the decisions that are needed.
At the time this commercial was being aired, every single public enterprise the Soviet people fought and bled for was being wholeheartely sold off to private hands for literal pennies.
Because they were worth literal
2%.
pennies.
Yeah.
The Soviet people fought and bled for these useless slag-producing factories.
Yeah, and they've mostly bled for them because of the terrible local standards.
Yes! Losing some fingers here and there, you know.
Yeah.
The actual worth of whatever enterprise.
Honestly, though, if you actually looked at what a Soviet factory looked like, I think OSHA would have a field day.
I would like to see that.
Yeah, I'd be happier than an OSHA worker at a Soviet factory.
Inflation, lack of practically all sorts of goods, a complete collapse of Russia's industrial base, and 100 other issues. At the very time this was aired, the vast majority of former Soviet states have yet to reach pre-Soviet levels of development 30 years after the dissolution.
They all, I think, maybe
we went over this already.
we went over this. They mostly all recovered by 2003. Like, I don't think Georgia has a high GDP. I don't think GDP per capita rise Georgia recovered. So that's for.
And like Ukraine is another one, but that's kind of not fair because Russia has been waging a war against them for these past 7 years.
Yeah.
So it's kind of not fair to call them out for being poor.
Let's see. In 1973, Ukraine had a GDP per capita of $7,800, which is actually lower than Uzbekistan, which I find weird. But now they have a GDP of about $11,000. So from their height to now, that's 9,000. Uzbekistan still has a higher GDP. From 1973, 7,000. Now it's 9,800, almost 10,000. That's still an improvement from their height.
Yeah, and I checked also for Georgia. It reached 1990 levels in 2005. And another thing about Georgia is it actually underwent a brief civil war following the Soviet collapse against Abkhazia and South Ossetia. So again, it's kind of bad faith to point at how poor they were at that time.
And again, like, you could definitely say the Soviet Union did keep things stable, but the thing is, it wasn't that stable if it could collapse so easily.
Yeah, almost as if it was like some sort of facade that was waiting to break down at the first slight moment of losing control.
Well, the illusion of stability is usually why there's Soviet nostalgia.
Happens. Yeah. Also, for Russians, they miss having an empire in many cases.
Yeah. Like, it's funny how they're like, oh, look how many Russians support, like, the Soviet Union. But a lot of Russians also support the Tsarist system.
Yeah.
Almost as if they just like the imperial system.
Yeah, they like being big and strong and respected on the international stage, even if they live in shit at home.
Yeah.
All right, fucking Zoomer over here has no clue what he's talking about. Opportunity for what? Eating rotten apples? Dying from fully preventable diseases because Soviet healthcare was privatized or completely dismantled? Mass unemployment? What possible opportunity could have come from the greatest geopolitical disaster?
They
Again,
didn't.
he's talking about stuff to the extent that it's true that happened under Gorbachev's successor. So it's kind of not fair to pin those things on Gorbachev.
Also, just looking at GDP per capita, even at the low point of in the former USSR, where the GDP per capita 1996 was $6,700. By comparison, the GDP per capita in the Soviet Union after the death of Stalin was 4,800.
So even at the low point of the collapse, it still fares comparatively better.
In modern history. Spot on again, old guy. Yet again, though, a horrific understatement. There wasn't just political
Yeah, none of that under the Soviet system.
Not at all.
Oh, yeah. Well, the fact that the Soviets were literally birthed from political instability.
And yet another case of pinning the consequences of a reform on the guy who carried them out and not the conditions that led to the reform in the first place. Because again, there were sporadic riots and strikes and unrest under the USSR for years. And it was very rarely reported on. A lot of the stuff we're only just discovering now. And because it was heavily censored and heavily repressed. The conditions for whole-scale political unrest existed for decades. But after some limited attempts to let people speak their minds, it just exploded out of control.
And like, if you actually look what there was a lot of debt in the Soviet economy because they put so much into the military. They also put very little funding into actual welfare.
Exactly.
In the 80s, if you were in the USA or the USSR, in the USA, you'd have to pay for healthcare, but you'd probably get healthcare.
Yes. The quality of healthcare is a whole nother thing.
Stability. There was total political collapse. Things were so bad for the new free and democratic establishment that the CIA had to rig Russian and practically all other post-Soviet countries' elections to prevent the Communist Party from coming back to.
Well, are we going to this argument that rigged elections?
Yeah, because first of all, I'm not sure if they rigged any other post-Soviet countries' elections for voting the communists back into power. Second of all, they're talking again about Gorbachev's former arch rival, Yeltsin, and his policies.
And like in 96, like if you look at the election result, there was no way that how did the US actually rig that election?
I mean, the argument is we sent advisors and the like to Yeltsin's team, but the thing was they dominated the media landscape already, so they had an advantage going into it.
Well, Yeltsin was kind of like it was basically the Putin system before Putin.
Yeah, no, people forget Yeltsin is what gave us Putin. It was our hand-picked successor. But it was just back then there was more of a veneer of democracy and to some degree more genuine democracy, at least on the local level.
Yeah. Also, what was with Tankies and liking Putin? Like the only political party that isn't actually a part of the Russian government in the parliament is the Russian Communist Party.
Yeah. Well, they're a performing puppet party of Putin nowadays.
Yeah.
To power. This is aside from the messed up stuff Russian police started doing, along with mafia and oligarch thugs murdering people without even so much as a slap on the wrist. You know?
Yeah, none of that before the Soviet system. Only millions of people in Siberia.
Yes. And Soviets known for their very benevolent and restrained police force, particularly the KGB.
Very restrained, especially in places like Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Only 2 million.
Only 2 million, you know, give or take a few 100,000.
Yeah.
And also,
the
oh yeah, also I was going to mention stuff like the Novocherkassk massacre, those sorts of riots that broke out occasionally, and they just completely airbrushed out of existence for decades.
I haven't heard of the Novichus.
Basically, it's when the government massacred a bunch of striking workers in 1962 is what happened.
Soviet Union was painted as in American textbooks and popular media, etc. It actually did exist, but it was capitalist Russia in the 90s. Oh my lord, is this dude reading from the American propaganda NPC line handbook? The fuck is freedom? What is freedom when people are starving and unemployed, illiterate, sick, and with no future prospects?
They weren't illiterate.
Yeah, let's start with there. I mean,
Yeah.
Look at the illiteracy rate in Russia. Did it go up at all?
Let's see. Let's see if I can. In 2002, literacy rate was 99.44%. Just based off of a simple Google search. That's okay. From 1989 to 2002, there was a 1.45% increase in literacy rates.
Okay, then. What's this guy going on about then?
See, there was also, what else did he say? I don't even remember. Literacy stuck out to me the most because that's like the big Tankie talking point. It's always literacy rates.
But people starving, yeah, go back to the 80s and people standing in bread lines and get back to me about how not everyone could get access to food. And second of all, also, no, go ahead.
You go. You were saying something first.
No. But it's just like you say, what is freedom? Well, ask the Soviet people in the 80s, because the second they were given any legal chance to dissent against the system, they took it and it spiraled out of control. And so much about Soviet history up until that point, with Stalin and even Lenin, was discredited with the new freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of the press, all that stuff. People leapt at those things when given the opportunity. So yeah, that's what this guy means by freedom.
And also, for one more, when McDonald's opened up in the Soviet Union, we could like watch people's reaction to it. Some people thought they were ripping them off because they were selling American prices for Russian workers.
Yeah.
Actually, funnily enough, I think the prices in the Russian McDonald's, I don't know what the price, I think they could have been actually reduced prices because of the situation.
I wouldn't be surprised.
You can't afford the reduced Big Mac.
Something tells me they weren't doing too well before.
Like most people the reason why some people didn't like the McDonald's was just because it was new and
it was foreign. It was polluting our culture.
No, you saw this one guy who was eating there and they asked him what he saw and he's just like, I don't like it at all. It's not Russian.
Yeah.
What is this flavor you call?
Hamburger.
It does not taste like borscht.
This is too good. Too tasty.
My shits aren't going to be so hard afterwards.
Yes. It might mess up the whole Soviet plumbing system.
Honestly, the fact that I don't know how many incidents they had, but if it's very little, then that's something I'll unironically give credit for the Soviet Union.
Yeah. Oh Lord.
I'll tell you what freedom this dipshit's talking about. The ability for a handful of several hundred people to consolidate all the wealth the Soviet people built into their own hands. Look up Russian oligarchs if you doubt me. Almost every single wealthy person in Russia now, without fault, did it through the theft
How
Look
of
at
Soviet
like
assets.
guess take a while, just a random guess who those people were and what their roles were before 1991.
I'm pretty sure most of them were government employees.
Yeah, most of them were Communist Party officials and KGB people, and a lot of the same people who were undermining Gorbachev's chances at reform, and now seeing the opportunity to grab money for themselves, they took it. This was the bureaucratic class that the Soviet Union had cultivated over 70 years, and now they were just no longer even had to pretend to care.
And this is why I think, again, why Ding was probably right about the Russians not reforming hard enough, because they weren't able to take out the bureaucrats.
Yeah, that would have been that probably should have started with that.
Because I don't know I wonder how Russia would be if Gorbachev actually just did a Stalin-like purge of the bureaucrats.
Before doing all the glasnost and perestroika stuff.
Yeah. Probably would be controversial, though.
Yeah, no, it's again, Russia is a place where so many dreams of utopia go to be brutally murdered.
Yeah.
That's favors and money embezzlement.
Полный хаос!
My boy here knows what's up. Complete and utter chaos.
Then why were the Soviets collapsing even before Gorbachev took power?
Yeah.
Actually, in the Eastern Bloc, there were uprisings all over there.
Yeah, the most recent in the 80s being Solidarity in Poland that was still operating underground despite the regime's efforts to crush it.
But even at the start, even under when it was probably the most stable, which would be the Stalinist era, there was still various uprisings and stuff
Yeah, there
Especially,
were kulak resistance, so-called kulaks. There was no objective definition in countries like Hungary, and there was underground armed resistance. And yeah, it wasn't a stable utopia.
I was also reading about the Romanian armed resistance they had.
Yeah, that gets overlooked too often.
And also, there were parts, even during World War II, there were parts of Russia that still had significant white army activities. Technically, the white army wasn't even said to have been officially disbanded until the 1960s.
Wow. Well, as an emigre movement. But there were people holding out in the Basmachi in Central Asia, were another example.
And the Chechens also held out for a long time.
Yeah, they had a bunch of uprisings against the Soviets. There was one during World War II. There was a series of unrest in the 50s. And again, it was the illusion of this stable, happy union of friendly peoples with a whole lot of hatred bubbling under the surface.
And the thing is, it was such a secretive state, we probably won't even know all of the uprisings that probably took place in certain areas.
Yeah, only when the archives are further opened. And again, that might even show part of it.
Well, because there were probably archives out just completely lost about the uprisings.
Well,
Because
from what we know so far, it was screwed up enough.
Because you can only really get these from allegations, but if you go to certain towns, specifically in the Caucasus, you'll hear about you'll hear stories that there was an uprising in said town that was crushed. There's no evidence of it though, because of how secretive the state was.
Yeah, they wanted to preserve the image of the union of friendly peoples and suppress this at all costs, and they had the capability to do that.
You can shove that pizza up your ass, Gorby. At least then the grease will make it easier for the West to fuck you.
Перспектив!
Hope for what? It was the exact opposite. There was zero hope, and it was clear to
They were growing. Well, let's see, economic growth. The economy was falling until the 1996. Then economic growth began to rise. And of course, now in the former USSR, economic growth has pretty much surpassed, they almost doubled to what they were in 1989.
Yeah, and if he's referring to Gorbachev's reign, yeah, his accession did produce a lot of hope when people finally had the ability to talk about their experiences and the pains they had suffered and complain about the system that had been fucking them over for years. That's what the guy probably means by hope.
Also, it should be noted, before Gorbachev took power, there was a recession in Russia, and there was growth after the recession when Gorbachev took power.
Yeah,
What
there
really
was the
caused the fall was hardliners attempting a coup and the nation separating from it. And there was no will to stop them because they just spent a decade in Afghanistan.
yeah, nobody again. This is what this guy underestimates. He blames everything on Gorbachev, but just nobody had the will to defend this decrepit and dying system. It's just like all the hordes of KGB people and apparats and state security failed to function in the second half of 91.
Literally everybody that lived then, for God's sake. Uncritical support for Chairman Old Dude, though. The guy's based.
Политическая нестабильность.
Да благодаря ему.
Yeah, the thing with the old guy, he probably does. I don't know about the old guy. He probably does represent the Russian opinion in the 90s because more accurately.
Because the economic situation at the time, and because again, Soviet rule bred a whole class of dependence on it. Like this guy's probably spent his whole life under that order, and was not used to being able to function in a semi-free society.
У нас есть Исахак.
La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Lady, you're old enough to have witnessed the Nazis destroy your country. What the fuck is Pizza Hut gonna do? You're gonna give up shashlik and sirniki for some crap overcooked American bastardization?
Yes.
Yes, exactly. We're going to give up standing in line for food that actually comes to you in relatively short order. That's what millions of people opted for.
Yeah.
Pizza? You're right. Because of Gorbachev, we have women with master's degrees selling themselves on the street in order to feed their children. But at least we have fucking stuffed crust pizza with extra cheese.
Because there was no prostitution. Oh, there probably wasn't because he probably got arrested for it.
Yeah, and it still happened as per many travelers there and their reports.
Yeah.
And again, this is something that happened under Yeltsin's leadership.
And also, there were prostitute. There was, if you're complaining about prostitution, you should hear what some of the Soviet leaders did. Levin Beria, look at what he did.
He's an extreme example, of course, but plenty of them did have mistresses, Politburo members and the like.
Some of them had mistresses that would probably get you thrown into a wood chopper in it.
Yeah, and apparently a rise of prostitution in Russia was noticed from the 1970s onward. So it's definitely not Gorbachev's fault.
You can almost taste the tears of the orphans.
За Горбачева!
За Горбачева!
За Горбачева! За Горбачева!
Sometimes nothing brings people together like a nice hot pizza from Pizza Hut.
Okay, yeah, this ad was kind of,
This
is time when making that pot, I'm pretty sure. I can imagine. Colby, we got this great idea. You sit there, I'll get it together.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Yeah, but also it should be noted that Soviet leaders before Gorbachev did have certain love for Western, specifically Pepsi was very famous in the Soviet Union before.
Yes, because they bartered to exchange a whole Soviet fleet of ships for the right to distribute Pepsi. So for a short while, Pepsi had the 6th largest navy in the world.
Yeah.
No, yeah, but that was how this country functioned. Western degeneracy for me, not for thee.
Like, for instance, Zhukov was actually, I don't know if it was Pepsi or Coke he had like a massive addiction to.
And he had like his own brand of clear Coke produced.
Oh yeah, because he had to disguise his Coke to be vodka so no one would notice he was drinking.
Yeah, American stuff.
Yeah. You can't drink Pepsi in the Soviet Union, but vodka.
Yes.
Go
And
for a
it's
drive.
yes. I gotta say, I don't think Pepsi made anyone beat their wives. Domestic abuse in the Soviet Union was a big issue.
Yeah. Actually, that would be like a funny scenario. Zhukov gets pulled over because the officer spots him drinking vodka, but the officer is actually suspecting he's drinking Pepsi. It's like, let me smell it. You're drinking American stuff, General Zhukov.
Yes, arrested. Whereas if it's vodka, now you can go.
Of course, I don't think anyone would actually arrest Zhukov.
No. He was pretty much an untouchable.
Yeah, like even Stalin couldn't arrest Zhukov.
He could only demote him.
Yeah, like the thing is, like also with Zhukov, that's one of the few red like Soviet high ups I can appreciate just because.
A military man, not super involved in the whole ideological bullshit.
Also, I could pretty much acclaim him to defeating the Nazis, not Stalin, because Zhukov was actually the one who did.
In charge of military strategy. No, that's true. That's definitely true.
And there it is, the fairy tale ending. If this actually happened, he would have been rightfully lynched, but no, we just get some babushka peasant pitifully looking up at the sky, waiting for death to mercifully take her.
That's pretty much Russia every time, though. Like,
yeah.
fucking depressing place, no matter what time period you're in.
30 years before, she'd be waiting for Stalin's NKVD people to come and drag her off.
Yeah, and then like before that, she'd be waiting for like the Tsar's secret police to drag her off.
Yeah. And before that, the Oprichnina.
And before that, she'd probably wait for like I don't know, Ivan the Terrible's.
Oprichnina, they were called.
Christian.
Yes.
And then before that, she'd probably wait for the Mongols, the Golden Horde men, to find her.
Yep, that's Russia for you. Pretty depressing place.
Poor Russia never gets a break.
Yeah, those poor Russians never get a break.
Yeah. Wait, what's with the extra 3 minutes? The ad's over. This is.
I think he's gonna rant a little bit more. In which case, let's.
It's a shitty propaganda piece that's used to sell pizza. Ironically, though, not to Russians. Yes, the people who made this trash knew just how horrifically unpopular it would be in Russia, so it wasn't aired there. In fact, Russian polls consistently show that Gorbachev is absolutely despised.
Hold on. Yet Russians still blame him. 1% expressed admiral. Just.
Well, a large part of that is even from anti-communist people, they see him as a failed reformer, just somebody who tried to keep the Soviet system afloat and ultimately flopped.
Also, let's see, 30% of people professed to dislike him, 13% overall attitude was one of disgust. That's 43%. That's not even the majority.
Yeah, but that's a lot of times that's how these sorts of polls work. But still, in other form.
Most Russians are probably just view him as indifferently.
Yeah, that's the thing, is with many other leaders. And there's a poll I saw somewhere where comparing him to former satellite countries like Hungary and Poland, he's very well ranked there. So I think it's just a matter of they accuse him of selling out their empire.
Yeah.
And rightfully so. A little less than a year after this ad was filmed in August of 1998, the Russian financial system collapsed, like completely bottomed out. This fictional family and the douche talking about my freedoms would have been exactly the demographic that were devastated, with unemployment skyrocketing yet again, with what few semblances of public programs completely gone, and triumphant misery for all. In merciful justice,
Wait, so then Russia's now better off, though, now, at least. Like, I would
And
say objectively, like, even though, like, modern Russia is complete shit, it's still better than the Soviet Union.
yeah, and better than this time too. Because again, that's something that happened under Yeltsin's watch and Yeltsin's leadership. But this guy seems intent on blaming Gorbachev for everything that happened after he was deposed.
Yeah, like, the thing with Yeltsin, he was a hard-right autocrat just like Putin. The only difference is that Putin was competent.
Yes, exactly. And not drunk a lot of the time.
And the thing is, like, I don't even, like, Putin's definitely not a communist from what I see. He's more of a corporatist, or at least a communist turned, like, corporatist.
Yeah, he's just a nihilist. He really doesn't believe in too much.
He's just an authoritarian.
Just wants power and money for himself.
however, the Pizza Hut location was shut down during that very same economic meltdown. Our boy Gorby, who was paid up to $1 million for this ad, possibly more even, lost all his own savings in that crash too. Thinking he'd still be the West's sweetheart after destroying his nation, he was sorely disappointed to find that they just brushed him aside, and even the Russian government at the time, while still treating him relatively well compared to the average Russian, practically didn't even acknowledge his existence.
Well, no, that's the thing. They didn't. Yeltsin, for several years, treated Gorbachev as pretty much an enemy of the state. And they did stuff like denying him homes and the like, and censoring his speeches. Because, again, this is something you need to put on Yeltsin, not Gorbachev.
Yeah, wait, denying politicians homes, censoring speeches. I see the true heart of the Soviet system now.
Yeah. Yes, it's like this guy almost gets it.
He went into semi-retirement in a shitty little apartment which flooded frequently from unserviced pipes and a crumbling ceiling that leaked from rain and snow. All the Russian government did for him was give him a maid to help him out. His entire family had moved to Germany. All these issues. If only there was a country with a system that provided all with their basic necessities.
Oh God, what is he going to? Soviet Union had shitty apartments in the 80s and 70s.
So yeah, he lived in basically a standard Soviet apartment from that time. And again, it was an issue of being treated as an enemy of the state. He was treated uniquely bad at the time.
Yeah, also, I wonder what he says about East Germany, another former communist state, which is now significantly wealthier.
Yeah, and Germany is one of the places where Gorbachev is most popular. They have statues of him there.
They also, still, my favorite is the statue of Reagan in Hungary. That's like the basic thing to Tankies.
Or better off, in Poland, there's a statue of Reagan walking with John Paul II.
Yeah.
A country that would have guaranteed he wouldn't live in such miserable conditions.
It's almost as if he wanted to preserve that country, but it was just unreformable.
No, what is he talking about? There's a country like that. It's called the United States of America.
My mistake.
Yeah. Actually, maybe he was just talking about the U.S. the entire time.
What an epic troll that would have been.
Oh wait, this waste of breath worked tirelessly to destroy that. And
Okay. No. There we have the good old Dolchstoss Legenda Soviet edition. Gorbachev was a product of the Soviet Union's problems. And he tried to fix them when in power, but just like that messed it up to such a degree that the place began coming apart at the seams. And these were forces that had been in the works for decades before his time, issues that had been discussed within the Soviet leadership before he was in any position of power. And yet he goes around blaming everything that happened, the entire collapse of the Soviet Union, on this one man. It's bullshit.
These problems with Russia, and it has a lot to do with Russian society, and those date back to centuries before the Soviet Union even existed.
That too. This is just a pathetic attempt to cope with all the problems by scapegoating a single person.
Like the problem in like the Caucasus Mountains and like I forget I forget what that one ethnic group is called. Starts with a K. Blanking on it. The Kalmals?
Comics.
Comics, yeah. I confuse them with kulaks. Like the comics, they've had like problems with comics for centuries. Like,
Yeah, these were issues that had been bubbling under the surface, even when the Soviet state was at its most repressive.
He deserved worse. He deserves worse. The fact that he's still alive is a travesty. Not only was one of his last geopolitical decisions to greenlight.
yeah. I wonder how he feels about Henry Kissinger being alive too. I'm a history teacher that's pissed about Kissinger being alive.
Yeah. That is, I imagine those two eternally haunting this guy's dreams. Just the two of them dabbing endlessly while he tosses in bed.
There's a Henry Kissinger in your closet.
Oh, he lives under the bed.
Yeah.
The U.S. invasion.
Well, to be fair, you know it's him because you can probably hear him doing talking to himself like, they must not know I'm in closet. Not me, the man who drafted the Paris Peace Accord. Hey, Kissinger, shut up. We're trying to sleep here.
Sorry.
Invasion of my country, Iraq. But his actions left countless people's liberation movements and socialist governments in the cold, with no diplomat.
Good. And also, those, again, blaming his actions for the fact that people in said socialist governments didn't like living under said socialist governments, and without tanks crashing in to support them, they simply threw them off.
Yeah. It's like in Ethiopia, I don't know if this was before or after the fall, but the leaders of the Ethiopian Derg were literally just came out and said, this is a failed system.
Same, actually, for the Afghan communists. They said they were no longer communists because it just wasn't popular.
Jeez, it's almost as if those guys knew something was beyond just... It's almost as if
this one guy stabbing them in the back. And also he mentioned Iraq. The Soviet Union was in a way too weak position to do anything either way in that circumstance.
Also, when the Soviet Union the Soviet Union supported Iraq, what were they going to do? Defend Iraqi imperialism?
Yeah. Against Kuwait? I mean, No, it was like they were in a real shit place economically. They couldn't do anything.
They also supported Iraq during the Iran-Iraq war. You know who else was supporting Iraq during that war?
Ah, yes, the good old USA. Yet another cursed, supported, and opposed box. The only more cursed one is Biafra.
Actually, a cursed one I think is when the United States supported NASA. It's like, you were literally digging your own grave with that one.
That came back to bite us in the ass on so many occasions.
Yeah. Imagine if the United States was just like, you know what, Britain, you can have the Sinai.
Yeah, Britain and Israel. Yep, you guys can have the Sinai. We don't care.
Not take economic or military support. His action.
Actually, it's actually funny how many times the U.S. shot themselves in the foot during the Cold War. Makes you wonder how we won sometimes.
Well, because the Soviet Union was just that much more incompetent and failed state.
Yeah. It's like, seriously, we've done some things that were like grossly incompetent. Like, you know what? Let's just assassinate South Vietnam's leader. That totally won't make them more reliant on us or anything.
Yeah, totally. Well, but there's a counterpart there. The Soviets assassinated Afghanistan's leader.
Yeah.
didn't just doom the Soviet
Oh, another big failure. You know what? This Batista guy, well, let's just sanction him because I don't think anything bad could happen. This Castro guy actually seems like he could be pretty good. No one seems to
Oopsie
remember that
poopsies. Yeah, no.
supported-
Yeah, like we placed an arms embargo while the Civil War was underway, and that's what precipitated the fall of Batista.
And also the fact that there was CIA operatives helping train Castro's men.
I did not know about that.
Yeah,
Wow.
that actually happened. There was a CIA gun runner who helped give arms and training to Castro's men.
Yes. These tankies here are going to be like critical support to the CIA.
Oh, no, they'd be critical support to Batista. First the CIA rebels, Batista.
Yes, the things we can trick them into supporting.
Gray Zone in the 1950s be like this. So anyway, the CIA is training this Castro terrorist to overthrow the legal regime of Batista.
And spread U.S. imperialism.
Actually, also, funnily enough, in the 1940s, Batista was actually a socialist.
Yeah, he was allied with the local Communist Party for a spell.
Yeah, so yeah, CIA operatives help rebel group overthrow popular socialist leader. The Gray Zone articles in 1958, probably.
Yeah. Gold medal for mental gymnastics, right there.
people, but countless millions around the globe. Hold on, though. You think this is it?
Oh, okay, wait a second. There's one communist nation that didn't suffer any economic downfalls after the Soviet Union. Who was that again? It was the one that was reforming itself.
Yeah, both of China and Vietnam are the ones that adopted free markets and became success stories as a result.
The thing with Vietnam is that, a thing that really helped them out was that after the Soviet support, they realized they couldn't continue their Cambodian war anymore, and so decided just to withdraw. And that got sanctions removed from them. So
all good, all good.
yeah, funny how it's like this guy's just like, yes, all the communist states needed the Soviet Union to survive, except for the one that didn't.
Surprisingly enough.
Yeah. Like, what's China doing again? Oh yeah, that's right. They were reforming themselves.
Yes. And their criticism of Gorbachev was that he didn't reform enough.
Yeah.
He also did ads for the Austrian Federal Railway Service for some strange reason, as well as an ad for, yes, Louis Vuitton. Fuck you, Gorbachev.
I don't know what Louis Vuitton actually is.
The company that makes fancy handbags.
Oh. I don't know. No, I don't know how that ad would have actually worked.
It's him basically riding in a limo next to the Berlin Wall with a Louis Vuitton bag.
Oh.
Fuck you. I look forward to your grave becoming a gender-neutral bathroom, you son of 16 generations of bastards. As we say in Iraq,
wait, is this guy Iraqi?
Yeah, he is.
Oh. Wait, so he must support Saddam Hussein.
Yeah, no, I think there was some Twitter drama a couple months ago about this guy denying the Al-Anfal genocide.
Oh, yeah. Iraqi socialists, they're something else.
Bizarre.
Yeah.
Which is weird because Saddam actually persecuted them.
Yeah. Also, for some reason, there's a lot of Saddam Sims who also like Iran.
What the fuck kind of sense does that make?
Yeah, those two natural allies right there.
Yes! No bad blood whatsoever.
Yeah. Also, speaking of Iran and Iraq, though, just read a poll that said that America is actually more popular with Iraqis than Iran is.
Yes.
Even like Shias in Iraq don't like Iran.
Yeah, they want us to stay to protect them from them.
And that's all for this time. Sorry, it was a little more of a meme, but I was feeling a little silly, so why not? I apologize for the excess cursing, but this angered me, as you may expect. If you like what I do,
Oh, then in that case,
Okay, video seems
if
to
I'm
be
gonna
over
anger him
now.
more than George Walker Bush is the most based president we've ever had. Israel is the most legitimate country on earth.
Oh gosh. No.
Iran should have won the Iran-Iraq war. Oh, we might actually support that. It's weird.
Now we're going through mental gymnastics.
Yeah. Feel like, wait a second. 1980s, they probably would have supported that because, let's see. 1980s, Saddam was being supported by America. Iran was trying to invade an American regime. Is that what the story is?
Yeah. Also, another thing to say to this guy is the Iraq strike was based in red pilled.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, so that's a new video. I wasn't
Yeah,
expecting it.
for a recap, it's basically a pathetic attempt to cope with why people didn't like communism and why it was such an unstable and poorly functioning system by blaming its collapse on the actions of one man as leader in violation of his own Marxist ideology, never mind objective reality.
Yeah, I was not expecting this to go on for over an hour. It was like a 9-minute video.
There was a lot to dunk on. What can you say?
Yeah, honestly, we should react to him more often.
Totally. If we can find some more stuff that he's released recently.
Oh, yeah, let's see. I literally just looked at his channel for like 2 seconds, and you can probably find a bunch of... Okay, let's just look at videos. Socialism is just better scientifically. How shoving a bottle up a farmer's a-hole caused the fall of Yugoslavia. Why you shouldn't be supporting the Cuban protest.
Ah, shit.
Let's see. Economic calculation problem. Why North Korea is so weird? Does he criticize North Korea in that?
No, it's basically it's a video accusing all of us of unnaturally seeing North Korea as weird.
Yeah. It's not weird. Everyone else is weird.
Yeah.
I'm the one.
We're just special, is all.
Yeah. Special ed class. So I guess that...
Yeah, this has been a fun little stream. Hope we can do it again soon.
Yeah, anyway. Until the next time, I'll see you all